Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey everybody, good morning.
Hey,
Good
hey, hey.
morning.
Happy Friday.
Hey
Happy
Guy, we're here.
Friday.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just give it a minute for everybody to pop on. I'm just going to put Frank on the spot here for the mortgage minute. You have any updates for us, Frankie, on products
Yeah, actually,
or what rates are doing?
good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Rates are pretty much where they were last week. No change in the bond market. It's still around that 3.994%. So if you add about 225 basis points to that, you're probably looking at like a 6.25%. Rates are in that low to mid sixes again. Nothing much changed there other than the CPI came out today, which is the consumer price index. It was actually a tenth better than expected, pushing the inflation rate down to 3%, which is good because that gives the feds the opportunity, the opportunity and the whereabouts to cut the rates probably next week, about a 0.25%. We're looking at two Fed rate cuts, one in December and one next week. I was on a call last week or this week. It was a financial Zoom, and a lot of economic analysts in the bond markets are talking about rates probably coming down into the upper fives, pushing the 10-year down to that 360, 370 range in the coming future. So we'll see. We're going to keep an eye on it. As you know, things are day by day. But we've been riding this wave for a while. Rates are slowly coming down. So that's going to put the Feds in a good position to cut the 0.25% next week. And again, probably most likely in December. So we're in a good run. Hopefully we can continue. Government loans are in the fives as we speak, depending upon the product, whether it's a VA. USDA, we can't fund any of those right now, but because of the government shutdown. But for right now, VA, FHA, conventional rates are still great. So let's go out and sell. Other programs that we're offering, not that this pertains to a lot of the markets, but the down payment assistance programs, getting a lot of interesting calls with folks looking for down payment assistance. So we'll give you the 3.5%. We'll give you the 3.5%. You can have the closing cost financed, negotiated into the sales price. So virtually you can get in with no money down. So getting a lot of calls on that program these past couple of weeks. So interesting. Again, doesn't pertain to a lot of the markets, but if you have clients that don't have money or would rather use their funds elsewhere, we do have quite a few down payment assistance programs. So we do go into the low 500 credit scores. So have anybody that needs to be pre-approved, let me know. Be more than happy to help out.
Okay.
That's what I got.
I think we should probably assemble our great team of lending experts to share with us some resources, kind of brand agnostic resources that we can use across the different areas in terms of down payment assistance and whatnot, so that we can serve our clients better.
Yeah.
Frank, thanks for reminding me about that. It's not just about rate and fees. It's about possibilities and assistance. And I know a lot of those programs might take a little bit more time, Frank, to get put together.
Very little, pretty much streamlined. They're all streamlined at this point.
Now, are they state or are they lender sponsored down payment assistance?
Some are state, but a lot of them are lender down payment assistance. Again, you have the Florida Hometown Heroes, you got the New Jersey HMFA, but then we do have several investors that are willing to front the money up. So it's a combination.
And are we, besides the agriculture, what's the program that you can't do now?
The USDA, that's the zero. That's the zero money down. Well, right. VAs are no money down as well, but that's the yeah.
Are VA loans impacted by the shutdown?
No.
But the USDA. Now, how about insurance, like flood insurance? Is that issue resolved?
So I have not personally had any issues with flood insurance lately, but I hear that it is impacted. So I'll give an update on that one. I just haven't had anybody that's been turned down right now, but I did hear that it is impacted, but yeah, I haven't had anybody that's been impacted by it.
Nicole?
I mean, I just had a quick question. I know I was talking with Frank. Was it yesterday, Frank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Day before, yeah.
So just for as far as upfront buyer costs, what we can do to help our agents and then also help buyers, is it possible to do like if we work with you to do like an appraisal waiver or where you pay for the appraisal
Well,
and
the
offer
clerk
that
looks
as an
like it's
incentive?
Leaving now.
She's doing some work over in Lake Intervale area.
No. Okay.
Unmute yourself. I just muted everybody. Sorry. Nicole, you're muted. I muted you. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So I was just talking to some agents and I know we're talking about ways to help buyers because it is, interest rates, it's, insurance in Florida, certainly. What sort of things that we can help them, help even listing agents get their houses sold, what sort of incentives that are available. And I know I threw that out there, but I didn't know if it's something that we could actually offer would be like a,
Pay for the cost of the appraisal or something.
for
Yeah.
a model loan.
Yeah, two things. I talked about this in the past, and one of them is if instead of taking a price cut on the property, you can offer a $10,000. If you're looking to reduce the price on a purchase, instead of reducing the price, you can offer an incentive to buyers to come in with a concession that the seller's willing to pay for a concession to the buyer for a rate buy down. So that's one of them. I do have the ability to offer appraisal waivers. Appraisal waivers, there's two, let me touch on it two ways. When I run it through the system, it can come up as an appraisal waiver. And, but that's case to case, right? We don't know that. But I do have the ability to offer to pay for the appraisal through one of my investors. So yes, I am able to offer that as an incentive to try to drive traffic. So yes, we can do that.
And I don't know if that, like, I guess I want to hear from the agents if they feel like that's something that could, help them as listing agents or buyer's agents. But even if, we just had like, some signage that said
Yeah.
like free appraisal with the purchase of this home, something else for the Scooby Dooers, the people that drive by to look at, and then it's got your, information on it.
Yeah, I can certainly put something together for you for that. Absolutely. Yeah, and we did talk about that. So those are some great ideas that we talked about. So thanks for bringing that up.
All right. And just wanted to put something out there for everybody. We are in a high level of communication with our corporate office because we're doing our T2 Summit in Arizona for our platinum and above agents. We're invited to come out to Arizona and spend 2 days networking together and learning. Our senior leadership, Travis and Chris, had asked if we had any topics relevant to RE/MAX corporate strategic goals and whatnot that they can present to us in Scottsdale and thus present to us here. I wanted to know if any of us on this call here have any anything you'd like to have addressed by senior leadership at our Denver headquarters. And if you're coming to T2, that will probably be presented to you personally at the event. So is there anything that's top of mind from, brand strategy? I think one of the things for me and Tricia, why don't you go first?
So I attended Activate in Canada, Halifax, as well as Luxury. And what RE/MAX headquarters is doing with opportunities for branding is amazing. And I think it would really help us take it to the next level to have them attend and present what they did at that event. And something that I wasn't at Elite, but in Canada, they actually had a challenge of a listing presentation and they had about 8 participants. And then they also had a separate one from young leaders present on 6 or 8 different topics. So I think the competition adds so much, and what they're doing at headquarters is amazing.
So, in terms of, drilling this home, in terms of what you want corporate to bring, they facilitated, some of the best presenters to share that at the event, but how does corporate, participate in that? Did they help with the collateral material for that presentation?
Well, yes, they did.
Okay,
They actually, Canada put out the Young Leaders Network presentation and you had to submit. So it's something that attendees could submit to you or to your team that's putting it together.
okay.
I think competition always speaks loudly. And just for the branding, the video opportunities, the Remax Engage, I think it would be really good for it to come from headquarters.
Fantastic. All right, I will mention that to them. Any other, hot topics that you'd like to hear from our senior leadership at the brand? One topic that I wanted to kind of discuss with them is, and I'm not a big fan of the Compass, pre-market, process, but I just want to get their take on, what their, opinion is, and if there's any way of sharing, that process amongst our network, which gets very complicated because we have so many different, MLSs and different ways that we share our inventory across the network. Serby had mentioned recruiting. Did you, want to hear about that in terms of like team building, Serby? Okay, yes, got you. All right, anything else, before we get on with the show today? Going once, going twice. All right, topic closed. Trish, you got another one?
Yeah, so I live in Scottsdale, and if anybody wants any ideas, if you're planning on spending any extra time here or a lift from the airport, it's really close to our office. So please reach out to me. I'll put my phone number in the chat.
And Tricia, you were at our last year's event, so
Yes.
she's a spokesperson for that, the value of the networking. I think you probably got more value from the networking than anything else. So next year, everybody shoot for platinum, and wait to see where we're going to go next year.
You're gonna love Scottsdale.
It's going to be
What can I
hard to
say?
beat. It's going to be hard to beat that one. That's for sure. I
It
got
is.
my hands full.
Yes.
So today, I want to talk about, going 7 levels deep, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of doing that. But I think the bigger piece to this conversation is, taking us out of the salesperson's role of, I'm, taking a listing, or I'm working with a client, they want to buy a 4-bedroom house, they want to trade, like all these things that they want to do. These aren't, we want to find out what the emotional connection is. Why do they really want to do that is the point of going 7 levels deep. And I'm going to credit Angie Veristock for keeping this top of mind with me, because that finding out the why is really important to both connecting with your client at a higher level and also being able to serve them. Because, when somebody says, I want a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, that's not what they really want. They really want a safe place to raise their family. They want to be a role model. They want to build wealth to be able to provide for their family, or there's always a deeper motivation behind, the surface. And we usually just settle for whatever the surface answer is, right? If somebody wants to sell and move someplace, I want to sell my house in, Plantation. I want to move to Stewart, right? That's the surface level. What's the reason behind it, right? And how can we help them at a better level? Does anybody do deeper questioning when they talk to clients? Anybody that presently does that? Because if not, I'm gonna try to make you all a little bit of a convert, and just so that we can help our clients better.
Yeah, one of the first things I do is make sure that they know they have somebody wherever they're moving to. A lot of people are asking, they just end up with the agent on the on Zillow or Realtor.com. They don't know that we have an agent that we work with in the market they're moving to. I just got a home sold in Wilmington, North Carolina for a client from Birmingham, Michigan, and then another one in Jacksonville. So you gotta speak up and let people know.
And so David, you go into like more than just the surface motivation of why they're moving, like why are they moving to the new area?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's to be by family or they're downsizing. It's very common. They have too much space. They're empty nesters now. Sometimes it's a divorce. Sometimes, a lot of times now, I'm seeing, unfortunately, a spouse has passed away. Today, I just put a sign in the ground for a client whose husband just died and she's moving to a nursing home. But I helped her find a nursing home in Georgia and she's leaving Sarasota. So, yeah, I mean, reaching out and building a relationship with her children a week ago has just led me to a possible investor moving to Florida. I think that opening your mind and looking deeper into what we're talking about here, the conversation is so important, and a lot of agents just kind of let it go, for sure.
But once you find the motivation for the sellers on why they need to move, it makes your job easier. Then you'll be able to navigate where they need to go and how you can help them.
Yeah, and it builds a rapport. It makes the whole transaction easier.
Exactly.
The deeper I get, and that's why you get the reviews and you get the relationship to a whole nother level.
So, good.
Hi, good morning. I think, honestly, I think digging deeper helps, whether it's the buyer or the seller. It helps you with their motivation and how quickly you need to move. If somebody's not in a real big hurry, you don't have to be as pressing, or how to navigate that listing and such. So I think digging deeper and like you said, they might not want just a 4-bedroom. I mean, a 3-bedroom might work. I think what's important is what kind of neighborhood, what kind of school, where they want to be. So you got to dig deeper. The surface digging deeper will help you ultimately.
Guys, that's Shayna Beth Stewart from our case office. If you want to put on your camera, say hello. I see Summer Mandel is also on the call. Welcome, our newest agents.
Yeah, welcome.
Good morning. I'm sorry.
There you
I'm on
go.
my way to an appointment, so I'm in my mirror.
Now we know what you look like. All good.
This isn't typical.
It's all family. It's all family here.
Not a photo shoot today. No, I'm doing problem.
So-
Rob, I actually went on an appointment last night and for a listing, and like my primary concern is where are these people gonna go if their house sells very quickly? I was really worried about that and why they were moving, and they very attached to an animal they had that passed in the house, so they just can't even stay there anymore. It's kind of like a scenario I've never had before. But I did find out where they want to go. I did find out they have temporary housing if they need it. So that's good news. So we can get their house on the market soon.
And Fran, how many years have you been in the business?
Oh, way too long. 33.
So you're like me, you've been in the business over 3 decades, and
Yep.
have things changed dramatically in 33 years since you've been in the business in terms of, I mean, there's some technology components to it, but things are, in my opinion, are very similar to 33 years ago.
Oh, yeah. No, I think the back to the basics, really, the basics and the core of doing our business has not changed. How we do it is changed a little bit, but with technology, you're right. But asking those important questions, developing that rapport, and really a genuine concern. Like they have a little baby. I was like, where are you going to go? You have to, I've always asked those questions because I want to be able to service them, whether I can refer them or sell them the house.
Yeah, the basics of selling and buying are basically the same. You have to do, you have to do the same thing that you've been doing for years. It's just the technology has changed. So you have to keep up with technology. But the basic, format for buying and selling are the same.
So I'm going to use an analogy, which is, flying. I've been flying for my entire adult life, and I feel like this experience is something that hasn't really improved over time. I feel like maybe the service levels are similar to maybe even declining. I know that there are some new products out there for people who want to have different experiences, but going through TSA, like, it feels like it's just something that's stuck in time. Maybe they now have a facial recognition, but it doesn't really do anything to enhance the experience of going through TSA and getting through an airport. I think the home buying process, in my opinion, is kind of in that same, the home buying and selling process is in that same category where it really needs to be reinvented. Okay. And the only way it gets reinvented is by us taking a leadership role in how we handle the process. And I think we've been conditioned to, be, Robert Garver been hearing me for years, for the buyers that we used to focus on a lot, called it designated door openers, or like, we just do what you ask us to do. We go there, we open the door, we have integrity, we have knowledge, but we really haven't enhanced the process. Right. And I'll give the analogy of, Tricia, if somebody comes out to Scottsdale from New Jersey and says, I want to buy in Fountain Springs or Fountain Hills, right? And I want a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and my budget's $650, we might go out there and show them and get them that house. But I think the bigger question is, is Fountain Hills really right for that person? And do we not, ask better questions to help redefine where they go? Because that makes us irreplaceable when we do that. If, you look at somebody calls up and they say they need to be here, and that's all we do is we search for that house and we presume that they have all the knowledge to make the right choice. I think that's a missed opportunity and a flawed process, right?
I agree 100%. So unless people have been to the Valley, I have a video on all of the cities in the Valley, how far it is from the airport. It's pretty well central. And I talked to them about what lifestyle they want to live when they're here. And of course, price definitely affects where they can afford to live.
Yep. And asking better questions will take us from being a designated door opener, or even when somebody's selling the house, like, we look at it from a tunnel vision aspect of, all right, you're selling your house, my job is to sell a house. Well, how about assist them with where they're going, go deeper into the timeline, go deeper into the motivation. I believe in my core, like, sometimes we don't ask those questions because we might convince them that they don't want to move, right? Or it's not the right thing. And the reality is, if you ever had a listing from somebody that really didn't belong selling, how did it work out for you? Like, if you took a listing when it wasn't the right move for them to sell, it probably was a nightmare. It probably didn't close, right? And it probably wasted your time. And, if we have that FOMO, fear of missing out, right, we're going to avoid asking the question that might detract us from not getting the transaction today or not signing it up. But ultimately, that's not congruent with what we want to do. If we, work with a new client or an existing client, I think the process has to be that, whatever the bargain is, whatever the contract is, if I charge you, 3% to sell your house, Tricia, and at the end of the day, you need to feel like you got 10% worth of value and are going to go out of your way, not just 4% worth. And it's because of the way
Deanna?
that we reframed it and we did it a little bit
I
different.
thought it was you.
Hold on.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Oh.
That's why you have to work through the process and the conversation and have a face-to-face with them.
Yeah.
In the
And-
beginning, if they're from out of state or out of country, Zoom is a great way to have that face-to-face. And I think when they have the opportunity to see you, even if it's on the screen, it builds the accountability and trust.
And, I think asking, like, sometimes if you ask better questions, right? And maybe even if you pass on a transaction because it's not ripe or it's not the right thing for them, I can tell you that some of my best relationships when I was in lending were when I told somebody to either it's not the right time for you to, restructure your loan, or it's, maybe you want to go to this resource to get your funding, right? I knew of a niche player, and then that person gave me 10 times a return because I gave them good advice that wasn't in my own best interest, right?
Absolutely. And I ask them, what do they feel they have to have and what would they like to have?
Right. And is there anyone working with a buyer? And I don't mean to mention names, but I want to ask you a few questions to see, how deep you know about what's going on with their motivation. And then I'm going to work back into it. Somebody must be working with a buyer that wants to maybe have a little bit of insight. Mr. Gagnon, do you have a buyer you're working with?
Yes, I'm actually leaving in 15 minutes to do showings with her. So
Okay. And what are they looking for?
she's looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home at 400 or less in Delray, Boynton, Boca.
And does she own a home now?
She's renting.
And why does she want to buy?
She's 57 years old and she wants to be closer to her boyfriend and her son.
Okay. And what would buying a home do for her that renting doesn't?
Build equity for sure. Security, I think,
And what does building equity and security mean to her?
I'm going to meet her for the first time here in about 45 minutes. So, she's wants to be, let's say, in a more established community. She just, she's not ready to move in with her boyfriend, but she wants to make sure she lives within a reasonable distance between the two of them.
And did you say she has a son or a daughter?
She has an adult son, yes.
And does the adult son live with her or no?
Lives with the father.
Okay. And so basically what you want to do in this process, Dan, is kind of ask, like, what does that mean? What, being closer to her boyfriend, what does that do for you? What is buying a house? Maybe buying a house means that she'll feel financially secure if she, had to retire and would have, a nest egg of equity. Maybe it would make her feel like a role model to, her son. There's a lot of things that you'll get to that, it's not a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. It's not, the fact that I'm a homeowner versus a renter per se. It's what does that mean? What's the next level? Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's like she wants to have an ability to, contribute to her grandkids' purchase of something. So I think those are the things that we almost never ask. What's the reason behind the reason, right?
She's well aware of insurance costs here, and the condition of the home, the roof, and the windows are a big concern for her. So, we're looking at homes with impact windows and a 2 or 3 year old roof.
And I picked on you, Dan, because you're one of the most logical people here. And I want to get you to go into a little bit more of an emotional reason as to why people are motivated to do things, right? Because it's not always, you and I are probably spreadsheet nuts, like, but it doesn't fit in the spreadsheet. It's an emotional connection. It's an emotional impact that you get to. You know, things that you'll get to at the 4th or 5th or 7th level will be, you know, I've worked hard. I want a place to enjoy life, right? I need to prove to myself that I can do this. I want to be a role model for my children. I want to be able to provide for them when they go to college. And they get through all this, and it comes down to buying a house makes them feel like they were a successful parent. You
Right.
see how that could possibly be when you go a few levels deeper?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and you
absolutely.
feeling like you succeeded as a parent is more than having a big 401k or, you know, calling yourself a homeowner. It's part of that whole, you know, deeper intent, right?
Right.
I think some other things. Let's see, feeling safe, having security. You know, why, you know, even to the point, why now, Dan? Like you're 50, you know, you said she was in her 50s. You know, what's the motivation for doing it now?
I haven't done a deep dive in terms of her personal life, what
Right.
happened and when, but
But I mean, you know, is that a question that's in bounds? Or would you
well,
really ask that?
she may open up to me in those terms when we get together. Yeah.
And I'm not, for a particular buyer, like, does anybody feel like that's out of bounds? Ask somebody like, why now? And what does that mean to you? Like, does anybody feel like that's going too deep?
I asked that question. And this is Sharon. I always ask that question for buyers, but nowadays I really don't work with that many buyers unless they were referred to me or past clients. But I'm working with a buyer now who I've worked with like 20 years ago, and she just got divorced, and she ended up. They're in the process of selling the house. It's going to be closed next week, and she's right now living with her sister, and so she's like way motivated to get the heck out, but she just needs the money from the sale. But yeah, why now is like super important. Otherwise, you'll end up spinning your wheels with these folks. You know, I've had people like I've learned this lesson a long time ago. If they're not like if they don't have some kind of urgency for why they need to move, then they'll make you look, you know, show them 40 homes or 50 homes. and that's a tremendous waste of time. So it's important to kind of understand their timing because it helps you to get them focused on what they need. And when the folks are like not in a rush, like whenever it happens, I'm not really
Right.
interested anymore working with those kind of buyers.
And you know, Sharon, you bring up a good point. Like, you know, whatever's a waste of time for you is also a waste of time for, you know, your client,
Correct.
right? And sometimes we feel like we're the victim because this person was kicking tires. They looked for 6 months and they never bought. And you know, for better or worse, I really feel like whenever those examples happen, you know, we need to look at ourselves and say, you know, what could we have done differently, right? Was it a flawed client that we chose to work with, or was it that we just didn't give them the ability to understand what it means to buy, right? Because there are people that should buy that think they want to buy, but they're kind of stuck in the middle of a double lane highway between not buy and buy, right? And it's very painful. And you know, asking better questions will help you prevent them from wasting their time. And it's not about, I really feel like for me, if I was working with Sharon and I was just looking at figuring out how do I make a commission to pay my mortgage next month versus if I put myself in the, you know, in the role, in the mind of Sharon, and how do I help her? And is this the right decision? Like it's going to help us both, right? It's going to help us both if we, you know, ask those deeper questions and decide, you know, why must you buy now, right? And I use that strong word as opposed to why am I kicking the tires, right? And you know, that takes us, it transcends the 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It takes me to the Tricia thing of saying,
Which one do they
hey,
take off now?
I can get you the best deal on the wrong property. That's what we do if we don't ask the right questions. And in order to get to this point, it's more than just, you know, saying I'm going to ask a series of questions. It's basically understanding the communication process. Because if you get it wrong, do you think it's possible that you might offend somebody if you're not really deliberate and process oriented? Right? Why do you need to buy this house? No, David Holler's going to tell me, I want a 3-bedroom house on the water. Don't ask me questions. Just go show me the house. That's not going to be a solution-oriented process to giving us the ability to serve them at a higher level. Learning and having confidence in communication process versus knowing the industry. Unfortunately, knowing real estate and being an expert isn't enough. You know, knowing your product and being an expert isn't enough in today's market. I would say that I would take the person that has next level communication skills and average real estate knowledge over an expert in their local market, like a top 1%er in their market, but average in communication skills, right? Because it's going to be frustrating not to be able to communicate throughout this whole process and negotiate. And you know, going that different direction really changes the entirety of the process.
I think even also when you're out showing properties, asking them questions about what they like about the property, what they don't like about it, what didn't work for them, I think really kind of helps to focus them. Like this particular client that I'm working with now, she you know, she was sending me these properties that she was thinking that she wanted to see, but we had already looked we'd already looked, and she didn't want properties that were 1,200 square feet, but yet she's sending them to me now, and I'd have to kind of get her refocused again. Like, I thought you didn't really. Oh, yeah, you're right. And so if I hadn't asked those questions, I would have been out showing her properties that she never would have bought. And so asking questions and trying to figure out like what they like and why don't they like something, I think is really super important to get you and them focused on really how you can help them. And I think I find, or I have found over the years, that the more I can help fine tune what it is that they're looking for, the easier it is for me to find it for them, right? And oftentimes it's not what they think they want, but you can tell from, you know, the showings and stuff that you do with them what they're actually leaning towards. And it's helped me to get a lot better with working with buyers.
You know what else is interesting, Sharon, that I've learned is the amount of showings it takes to find the right property for somebody is probably more dependent upon who they work with than the individual themselves. And I know that might be controversial.
No, I agree with it. 100.
Because when I looked at, you know, and everybody says, oh, it's 4 to 5 or it's 5 to 7, right? But whatever the number they give me, but when I ask them to go look at their last 3 clients and how many properties they showed, it's often very different from what they thought. Okay. And there's an agent that's now retired. Her first name was Mary Alice. And, you know, she took, like, her clients loved her, but she took forever to sell them a house because she wanted to make sure that they saw everything. And to the extent, I remember, this is probably about 8 years ago, before the pandemic, her clients used to come in the employee entrance. I mean, that was a problem when they would come in the back door and not go through the reception because they've been working with Mary Alice for so long. And when I talked to Mary Alice, her belief was, I want to make sure that they saw everything, and I would never buy a house without seeing 10 to 15 myself. And that influenced the way her buyers looked. And I have other people, you know, there's a gentleman, Brian, that works for us now, that'll be like, hey, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions like you, Sharon. I'm going to eliminate a lot of the properties that don't meet what your goal is. And if you have a deeper understanding of what they're looking for, then you can eliminate, some of those properties that they don't need to see that will just confuse them. A confused customer never behaves properly. Okay. So, Brian literally probably sells with 2 or 3 showings because he's very intentional in what he does, and he has a different belief than Mary Alice. He's like, Sharon, I don't want to waste your time if this property is on a busy street and you said you wanted a quiet neighborhood, right? I'm not going to show that to you.
Correct. That actually is one of the things I look at, where that property is located. And sometimes the clients aren't thinking about that. They're just seeing the house and the pretty kitchen. And then you realize when you pull up an aerial map that it's not someplace that they want to live. And I mention that to them. But yet I don't just exclude it. I tell them, I say to them, hey, this backs up to a really busy street. And you guys said that you spend a lot of time outdoors with family and the pool and all of that stuff. Is that going to be a problem for you? And let them answer the question, because a lot of times they'll eliminate those properties. So you just save the time and the effort of having them go through properties that they would just never buy.
And even to the point of, and I'm just going to do like a little bit of a flashback, and this is not going towards the motivation, but this is going towards their behavior. Sharon, last time you bought a house, how long did it take? How many properties did you see? Was that helpful to see, 25 properties? Or would it be better if, if I eliminated the ones that were a non-starter because of your criteria, right? Because sometimes they might feel like, I'm sitting in Westfield, New Jersey. There's a neighboring town that has a lot of great properties that come on, but they happen to be in flood zones. Okay, and people get, oh my God, this looks like the bargain of the century. It's completely redone and it's 200,000 less than everything else. Well, you know why? Because about every 6 to 10 years, that thing's going to wash out, and you got to be prepared for that. And most people are going to be like brokenhearted by that, but that's not something. I mean, if you're buying in a flood zone that's historically been flooding out, that's something that you want to have a conversation about beforehand, because it's just, you're then looking at that and trying to find a comparable property, something that's not anything you'd ever buy. So I think, Sharon, asking better questions and eliminating the process will also make working with buyers easier. And a lot of times we don't, as an industry, we don't ask, tell me about the last time you bought, or maybe even somebody who's never bought. Have you ever been out looking before? What prevented you from buying a property when you started looking 3 years ago, right? These are all questions that go beyond the, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, that they think they want.
Rob, quick question for you. I just wanted to get your opinion on this. Would this be, as somebody who does a lot of telecommunications, would this be something you would suggest doing over a phone call? I mean, I like to normally do my LP Mama type scripting and conversations. Would this be something you'd want to do in such an early stage like that, or this is more of a face-to-face, correct?
So, Justin, I would say that it is. I would be asking the questions consistently until you get the answer. And being that you volunteered, LP Mama, for those of you who don't know, is, I believe that was a boomtown query process. Is that accurate, Justin?
Correct. Yeah, it's just kind of an acronym to let you kind of get what you need out of that phone call. And it's LP Mamas. You get the location, the price, their motivation, whether they're working with somebody or not, what type of financing, like a mortgage. So M for mortgage. And then last one is always funneling to an appointment ask.
Yeah. So probably part of their motivation, Justin, would be asking some deeper questions, right? And you need to have, I'll call it situational awareness. And in an in-person meeting, it's like being able to read the room to find out how they're responding. But a true master would be able to go and ask those deeper questions, and that would differentiate you from everybody else, right? I mean, the tone, like people can sense if you're just looking to make a quick commission, versus if you're authentically trying to help them, right?
Definitely.
So, I would go a little bit deeper if you can, and that will strengthen the bond. And, if you get into the habit of doing that, Justin, when you meet those clients for the first time, it will feel like you've been working with them for 6 months, right?
Right.
And I'm sure
I think that's one of the problems that I have though, is that my listing appointments are not, I know I kind of got hounded about this in the past because my listing appointments are not 30 minutes to 45 minutes. They are unfortunately an hour and a half. I'd be honest if I'd be lying if I said it wasn't more than that sometimes. So trying to kind of narrow that down, obviously motivation being such a prime way to establish, kind of the motivation behind this and keep things moving, but also have a genuine connection, I think is so important. I'm just gotta find that happy medium between, drawing it out and getting what we need so we can proceed.
Now, you're saying your listing or your buyer or both appointments are
It's
drawn out?
every appointment. Yeah, it's every appointment.
And just for everybody to benefit, like where do those appointments go where they're not consistent or they're maybe longer than you'd like them to be, or maybe right now you'd like them to be that long? I don't know. Can you share that with me?
How did the conversations go, you mean, or like
So let me ask
location?
you, how long do you believe an appointment should take?
Well, I never really put much thought into it until we had a mastermind about this. Kind of like we talked about listing presentations and appointments, and the strategy sessions, I think was more accurate is what we'd like to use. But anyways, I never thought about it. I just kind of let the flow go, and I want to have a genuine connection with them. I feel like I'm affable. I feel like that's part of why maybe somebody chooses me over another person, because I can have that connection with somebody. But I also understand the importance of keeping things on track. And so now I'm kind of thinking about that more and more, but I don't do the 7-layer deep question. And I like it. So I want to utilize it, but I also don't want it to be counterintuitive and add more to what is already an extended listing presentation and conversation.
Justin, so for everybody that doesn't know Justin, he's our guy in Virginia Beach. Good to hear from you. Justin, you're very authentic, and that's what the people that work with you love. And I think that, I don't think you need to change what you're doing. I think that it's working. We talk about efficiencies all the time. Rob talks about, obviously we don't want to waste time. We want to get you to the next appointment. But it sounds like this has been working for you for a while. And your videos, you're very, like I said, you're very authentic, and people really relate to you. And I feel like those are the people that want to work with you. So I feel like what works for you should just stay, the way it is. It doesn't seem like you need to change anything, in my opinion.
All right. So David, I would say that if I'm hearing what Justin's saying is he's building rapport maybe by finding similar things that they talk about that's not real estate related. Is that fair to say?
Definitely, yeah.
You might talk about your kids went to the same elementary school, or you went to the same high school, or you like the same restaurant. Like I find that a lot of times that's the comfort rabbit hole that we go down that takes us off of our mission. Right? And it feels comfortable to have those conversations, but it's not taking us to where we need to be, in my opinion. Okay. And I remember, I'm going to give you an analogy. I remember there was a agent who was also retired, Miriam, who was very active in Mountainside. She was the president of the school board. She was very active. She had kids that went through school, and every time she would talk to somebody, she would go down this 55-minute rabbit hole about, oh, how's Billy doing? How's this? How's that? Right. And then when she would call them again, like as we were going through her database, nobody would answer because they would think, oh my God, it's going to be a 55-minute call with Miriam. Okay. And that's my analogy that I want to share with you all, that it felt very comfortable at the time. But if you're looking at that call coming in again, you're like, oh, I remember the last time I spoke to Miriam, it was 55 minutes. Now that same is true, Justin, in my opinion, like when you start talking about, oh, I have a golden retriever, you have a golden retriever, my kids played Pop Warner, you know what I mean? Like you go into those things, you think it builds connection,
Such a
but
good point.
sometimes it takes us off the mission, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mentioned this, I believe, last week about the 98-2 rule, and that was a Jay Abraham thing that really stuck in my head, and it really resonates with me to the point where it almost haunts me, right? Because I know that some of us, we leave an appointment and we say, boy, that seller was unreasonable, or, that's not going to happen. And, we say it's them, right? They are unreasonable or they're unmotivated, right? And Jay Abraham puts it very succinctly that, our appointment should be 98% consistent. And there's always the 2% that are outside of our control. Okay, we don't focus on the 2% that are outside of our control. We focus on the 98% that can follow the process if we execute the game plan. Now, don't get me wrong, like there are different tools we need to use with different clients based upon the beliefs and perceptions that they have. Okay, but if you go on, I'll use listing appointments because this is a very easily understood process. Okay, if you're constantly surprised that your sellers have false expectations as to what the value of their house is, or they're trying to convince you that it's worth more, that's going to happen all the time. That's an emotional process, right? And you don't want to argue with them over it. You want to be able to control the narrative in the conversation, because what they really want is they really want the process to maximize the equity in their home with the least amount of stress, and some of them in an abbreviated time, right? Is there anything else that as a listing agent that we can provide other than maximizing their equity, minimizing the stress, and reducing the time? What else could they want? Mr. Newman, is there anything else your sellers would want besides those three?
Someone that's a pleasure to work with, I would imagine. to
Yeah, I was going to say
control.
the rapport, and I think just trusting you're looking out for their best interest is always at the top of my list with my sellers.
I think also access, having access to you when they need information or just questions.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alina, would it be more important to have access or to have a successful strategy to know that the process is playing out the best it can?
I would think access will be part of the strategy, right? It's one of the levers that you would offer for the whole process to be, win-win for both sides.
So,
one of many, right?
So I think that they want leadership in the process, not just a yes person. And if it's a yes person with access, then like sometimes there are things that really violate my integrity, which is like saying you can't sell a listing you don't get. And what does that mean when somebody says that? Anybody?
Just take any listing just to get it.
Right. So there are many agents in our industry, Sharon, that will take properties that are overpriced. They don't want to have that conversation because they fear they might lose the listing. Is that reasonable?
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but but some people do it.
I would say some or a lot do it, right? Because I think we bring an opinion, right, which is what our valuation is, and we haven't been able to effectively convince a homeowner or a seller to change the opinion that they have. So what we do is we just say, hey, Sharon, I'll take that listing, and we'll just talk about, you might after last week, you might talk about the 10-10-0, right? And say that that's an effective solution. But honestly, I think that's probably, putting you in you know, that 98% and the 2% means that you can have a better communication strategy so that you don't have to let them have price discovery by costing them days on market and lower leverage in the sale of their home. Right? Because if they overprice it, you know, does anybody believe that the worst decision that they can make in listing a property is overpricing it? Is there any decision worse than that? And you might say it's not picking me, but overpricing it's
Nope.
probably the biggest mistake they can make, right?
And not
Yes.
preparing the house.
I not preparing it, but I mean, the thing I see most of the time is overpricing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There are people that over prepare. You know, I would say not presenting the property, introducing it to the market where it's ready to be seen is kind of malpractice. But overpricing maybe is not seen as malpractice. It's seen as we blame the seller for that. And I'm going to be unpopular by saying if your sellers are prone to overpricing, we need to have a different communication strategy. Right? We need to find a different way to get leverage on them to make the right decision, not for us, Sharon, but for them. Right? If we're looking at it and saying it's going to be hard for me to sell it, or I don't want to put my name on this overpriced listing, that's about us. But if I say, you know, Sharon, you know, it's really, you know, you work so hard for the equity in your house. It's beautiful. We prepared it property to go on the market. You know, can I share with you some other homes that have taken this different strategy and how they fared? And say, is that something that you really want to do? And you don't have commission breath. You know, I'm not worried about the listing. I'm worried about the relationship. I'm worried about something different than, you know, cashing my commission check or figuring out how I can get you to lower the price once I got the listing signed. And I can tell you, like, my calculus in earning business is never take the listing at any cost and set the expectation to lower the price. Okay, there's an agent, his name is David, and Robert, you probably know who I'm talking about. He was like Joe Garcia or some of our agents here that are very aggressive about finding clients that have for sale by owners or expireds. And I tried to coach him, but he was very, very stubborn. And he was like, I'll take it at any price and I'll get price reduction signed at the appointment. That was his solution to my belief that that was a mistake, right? And he's now out of the real estate business and the hospitality business working for a hotel because I think he just burnt him to the crisp. And, you know, if you're doing the right thing and you're asking the right questions, like, hey, you know, Sharon, if we tried to do this and it took us 4 months extra and it might cost you, you know, $25,000, is this really what you want to do? And if you had an extra $25,000, what can you do with that? Right? That would be the asking deeper questions and, you know, not having the fear of losing the opportunity. Right? You know,
Actually, one of the listings that I literally just closed on last week was a seller who was really friends with a real estate agent in their community, and he listed the property for them. And when he listed it, he told them a price, and they said, they were asking him, like, really? That seems a little high. Needless to say, it didn't sell. And 4 months later, they were so pissed off. They were, you know, searching around trying to find a replacement. And I was that replacement for them. And they just closed and they have nothing good to say about it. In fact, it wrecked their friendship with that guy. But yeah, I've got some pretty good reviews from them and they're thrilled. And we did have to position the property differently and help them with a little bit of prepping. But yeah, it was all about the price. It was kind of crazy. And they knew it instinctively. They knew that he was wrong about the price, but they went along with it thinking, you know, maybe we don't know best. He does. He's the real estate agent. But it was really not good.
and Sharon, sometimes in the market, and I had this with some of our top agents in Vero. The market's gone down a bit, right?
Yeah.
And we feel bad about it. Do you ever have that? Do you ever have that emotional, like, oh, I sold them this house 2 years ago and they put some money into it. Now they're going to lose money. Kind of feel bad about it. They're trying to ask me, can we try it here? Has anybody ever been in that ship, especially if you're in some markets that maybe aren't still appreciating? Now, is
Yeah.
that an emotional tug of war for you, Sharon, when you have that?
Yeah, but you know what I do? I send them all the listings that they're competing with. And I basically will let them see, because sometimes telling them is one thing, but letting them see is a completely different thing. So one of the things that I've been doing lately is just sending them the alerts for properties that are on the market, that are in the general area that they're competing with. I send them the stuff that going pending, so the most recent pendings, and that way they can see what's selling while their house is on the market. And that really helps to get perspective. And then what's recently closed, because I think for some people, they just need to see it. They need to have that reality check, because they think their house is amazing. But when they start to see, oh, wait a minute, other homes went under contract and this is where they were priced. And then there's all these other homes that are on the market that might be as nice or nicer than theirs, and they're priced less. It helps to put stuff in perspective for them. It's different than just a spreadsheet, but I would like your spreadsheet, by the way.
And Sharon, probably more important than the spreadsheet is the concept, right?
That's
And
correct. Like the timing of how long it would take to sell the property at a certain price. Yeah. How
right,
long it's sitting on the market. Yeah.
and sometimes I feel that we go down this rabbit hole of logic with emotional people, right? And you can't win an emotional argument. Like, you're assuming that I show them all this other evidence and they're going to all of a sudden say, oh, I get it, right? But I think we need to have a different approach where, number one is, I think everybody I see on this call has a tremendous amount of intellectual and relationship leverage with their clients, but we need to know how to use that. And the way that we use that is by not trying to convince them, but by asking questions that help them discover that without having to misprice their asset and sell it for less, right? So the smartest person in the room without the right communication strategy is going to wind up with either an argument, or you're going to have to prove it to them that when I put it on the market, you see, there's no activity, which is a bad decision. And if we blame the customer and say they're unreasonable, that's 2%. Okay, I don't know, if you're doing 50 listings a year, that's one listing a year. But you probably find more sellers that are a little bit more emotionally unreasonable with the value of their home. And I'm telling you that that's on us. And it's on us to find a different way to present it without having an emotional, like, Sharon, I love to go out in an appointment where I don't own any, like, I'm not interested in any one particular process. Like, I'm not saying I think your home is worth 400. I'm saying that, hey, based upon the way that our industry evaluates properties, the market value looking backwards on comparable sales would suggest that it's 400,000. The good news is that doesn't mean it's what it's going to sell for. Let's talk about different opportunities and different processes, right? And let me empower you to decide how you want to market your home and maximize the equity, right? And even using this language, hey, Sharon, if we decide to work together, if we partner in the sale of your home, which is what you're really doing, I'm going to give you the information, and you have more equity than me, so you make the decision, but I give you the how things are performing so that you can make the right decision. Because in reality, we really are partnering, because we don't get paid if it doesn't close, do we?
Nope. And I always
So-
tell them it's ultimately their decision.
Correct, but we want to partner together to maximize the equity, right? We're on the same team here. I want to give you the information. So 98.2, okay, it's usually our fault, and it's not because we're bad. It's because we haven't figured out the way to ask the right questions, to get to the true motivation. or we haven't presented it correctly because we're dealing with emotional people and we're piling on them with logic, right? We're piling on them with data, but we don't get it. They're emotional. So again, I am a volunteer. If I'm in your neighborhood, I'm going to be in the Orlando St. Augustine market next week, Monday through Thursday. If you have any listings coming up there, I'll be glad to co-pilot those with you. And if you have anything you want to prepare for and you're not in that area, let me know. I'd love to help you prepare. I like to hear success stories and be part of, giving you different opportunities to get your clients to make smarter decisions. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.